In our discussion of the essential elements of the catechesis on Jesus, we've answered the question, who is Jesus, with an incarnation. Secondly, what did he do, with a catechesis on the Paschal mystery or redemption. Look at the third essential, what we would consider his second coming, or in biblical terminology, the parousia. Answering here for us the question, is at the end of the story? No, it's not the end of the story. He'll be back. We speak of the second coming, or we celebrate the second coming during the season of Advent, just as we mentioned as part of our celebration or our consideration of the Incarnation. But if you remember the readings for the liturgies of Advent, and also those readings associated with the end of the liturgical year, those readings leading up to the Feast of Christ the King, there is this orientation towards a consideration of the last things, what we would call eschatology here. Those things that will happen and come to be at the end. And in that celebration then of Advent, of course, we remember the multiple comings. The first coming in history, celebrated with the Incarnation, and his second coming, that we prepare the way of the Lord during Advent in anticipation of his coming again in glory. First time, Jesus came as a slave to suffer and invite. He will come again in glory to judge the living and the dead. He will come as a judge to impel, and every knee will bend. Our students take the opportunity on a regular basis to give witness to life in the March for Life in January in Washington, D.C., despite what the weather might throw their way. Part of that pilgrimage, for many of them, is the opportunity to visit America's church, the Basilica of the National Shrine of the Immaculate Conception. Sometimes those who have not been to that place before come back rather struck by the images that you'll see there. If you haven't had the opportunity to make a pilgrimage, I recommend it. In any case, on the back wall above the sanctuary is an image of our Lord as judge. I know there's a fancy name for it, but the students generally come back and say, in that basilica you see the mad Jesus, okay? He's coming back to judge the living and the dead. He's coming again, and he's not going to be happy, apparently. Well, it depends on how you've been doing along the way. It gives me sometimes a recollection in the language to see that image of our Lord who will come as judge, something akin to those words of Arnold Schwarzenegger when he played the Terminator, "I'll be back," right? So our Lord is coming again to judge the living and the dead. The question is, are you ready? And so it is that Advent season is a preparation, certainly a remembrance of his saving work accomplished as part of the Incarnation, but also this anticipation and preparation for his coming again in glory. It seems that why would this necessarily be an essential? Aren't there other more important things that we can say about our Lord? But I think the demonstration in society today, and perhaps among our disciples, is that maybe we don't live with that on our minds, that he will come again in glory, and he will come to judge. I think you see it in today's culture in the YOLO kind of dynamic. You only live once, or carpe diem, seize the day, as a justification to do things that we would normally not do because, well, you only live once, so you might as well take advantage of the opportunity. But it is the case that we live sometimes as if we're not anticipating the end. And I think it's important for your disciples to see that we do know what's going to happen at the end. We do know what's coming next. We do know that he has promised that he will return. And the question becomes, how are you living today in anticipation of that return? What we know will come in the future directs in many ways how we choose to live today. And so I think a catechesis on the last things and the second coming are very important for the disciple to have always in mind. And that's why I generally recommend that it be an essential part of our catechesis on Jesus.